Hey everyone, welcome to Broadband Deployment News. JD Power has their annual internet survey out for broadband service, and as one might expect, price is a major reason why people choose their internet service provider. Be right back. Thanks for joining me. Rick Uzzi here with Broadband Deployment News. So I want to take a quick look at this survey from JD Power. You see here, price of residential internet drives customer choice. I would think this would be especially the case. Now, this was taken actually a little bit earlier than, let's say, the major inflation that we've seen. But obviously, with prices going up in everything, people are trying to cut back where they can, and certainly price is a factor in lots of things these days. So we see here, while performance and reliability is the most influential factor in predicting overall customer satisfaction, the number one reason residential internet customers are choosing their provider is price, according to the JD Power 2022 U.S. Residential Internet Service Provider Satisfaction Study. So it's still important that the service be a quality service, but as far as why people sign up, it's price. Now, one concerning part about this is a lot of times service providers, especially big cable operators, and really, I think maybe even the major, let's say, national, possibly fiber providers, will have a low entry price, and then after a year that goes up, and then everybody's like, oh wow, why did my price go up? And then you're trying to negotiate down, and like, do you really want to cancel at that point? So that's unfortunate, because this would maybe give them reason to continue these temporary promotions, and I don't like those. I think a lot of people don't like those. I mean, you want to get in there at a good price, but then after a year, it's like, oh, now I got to go. My price is going up, and that, frankly, is a reason for people at that point to go look elsewhere, especially if the service has not been good. And as it says here, how did I put it? The most influential part as far as predicting overall customer satisfaction or reliability is the most important thing. So if your service is not reliable and the price is good, you're still going to look around at the end of that promotional period. But if people are satisfied, as I've said in the past, people need a reason to switch. It's a big hassle, right? I mean, you've got everything set up. You've got all your, if you're doing networking and things, and depending on whose router you're going to be using, the same router or whatever, you might have to change passwords. And then you've got all these cords you got to be hooking up, maybe, depending on what you're doing. So it's a hassle to switch. So people don't want to do it. They'll do it if they have a reason, and sometimes that reason is, wow, this is a much better price. And especially these days, like I say, as people are looking at the price of gas and chicken and eggs and everything, cereal, everything that's going up, they're like, well, we got to save somewhere, and here's a better price. We can save maybe $15, $20, $30 a month on broadband. So if you're a broadband service provider, just be aware that you want to try to make sure that you're providing the best service possible. And the most services, so not just a broadband connection, but try to make it more sticky with things like voice over IP, where you can maybe give them a price break, maybe an IPTV product, those kinds of things, to make it a well-rounded service that people are getting lots of stuff from you. It's a little bit more sticky. I see here more than half, 58% of a customer's satisfaction is driven by the quality and consistency of the internet connection and how the customer perceives the value of that connection. So if they're getting a really good connection, they never have any problems. When they call technical support, they get somebody on the phone. When they have a billing issue, they get it. If they have a billing issue, they get it addressed very quickly. Then they're going to be much more forgiving. With customers being least satisfied with cost of service, a consistent experience at a reasonable price is table stakes for providers. Each outage or other problem causes the customer to review that price-driven choice for real value. So they get in at that low price, or maybe it's just a consistent low price, but the quality isn't good. That's maybe one reason the price has to be low. People are willing to pay less for poor service up to a point. But then people start to, if there's lots of outages, it's like, well, why am I, it's not worth it, even though it's a low price. I really need my internet connection to be more reliable. Based on responses and this was from 22,945 customers that currently have internet service with a provider included in the study measures overall satisfaction with internet service providers based on 5 factors. So they looked at performance and reliability, cost of service, communications and promotions, billing and payment, and customer care. And the study was fielded from November 2021 to August 2022. So a lot of that was in the midst of inflation going up. Inflation's really been going up this whole time, last year and a half or so. It's just people have noticed it more recently. So it's interesting here that performance and reliability, I would have to put, I guess, speed in that category because it doesn't say the speed of the connection. I would really like to know how that factors in here because, we're seeing higher and higher speeds out there. And I've been saying that that's cool that you could have a gig internet, but most people don't need anywhere near a gig internet. And it's cool that you can have symmetrical speeds, let's say symmetrical gig speeds, but nobody needs a gig on the up speed. I shouldn't say nobody. There's probably somebody out there, but very few people actually need that. It's really more of a marketing checkbox for fiber, let's say, that says, hey, here's what we can give you. Look at, cable or DSL or Wi-Fi, not Wi-Fi, fixed wireless, and you'll see that they're much slower. Well, a lot of people can get by easily on something much less than that. So speed is probably less of a factor if somebody's, it's really going to be more about price and then the reliability. Once they're in the internet package and they've got it at home, then it's really about the reliability of that drives whether they're going to keep that. So then they've got some charts down here that shows just who's, and they're only looking at major internet providers. They're not looking at all of the independent. There's tons of independent operators out there that are cable companies, fiber companies, fixed wireless. So they're not looking at any of those independents. They're looking at the big guys. So here they're looking at the East, and you've got Verizon on top at 758. So this is based on a 1,000-point scale. So they're basically rating them on a 1,000-point scale. And I'm not sure what this region average is. It's not all of these numbers added up, and then it's not an average. It's also not the median score either. So I looked at both of those. I calculated them up, and I don't know where 707 comes from or in these others where the number comes from. So I don't know what region average is. But we've got Verizon on top at 758. Then we've got 706 at Xfinity, so they're second. Cox is at third. Spectrum, Frontier Communications, and then Optimum. Frontier's been really going gangbusters on fiber, so we may see their scores increase quite a bit. This may be dragged down by DSL plant that's still out there. It could also be other things like customer service questions or issues, but again, they were slow to the party with fiber for a phone company, and they've really picked up. So they've been putting a lot of fiber in the ground. So I think we can anticipate that their score would go up. And we've got Optimum down there on the bottom of those that were looked at here in the East. Then we've got North Central, and there's a company called Midco. That's a cable company that's at the top there. Then you've got AT&T, CenturyLink, WOW. That's a cable company, but WOW has really been putting in a lot of fiber as well. They've been doing some greenfield fiber. I don't think they've been overbuilding yet. They might be overbuilding in some areas. I can't recall. Then you got Xfinity after them. So you can see, WOW, smaller operator, not as big as Xfinity, but they're exceeding them. Then again, you get region average in here for some reason. Again, these numbers do not, if you add these up and divide by the number of blue bars, you do not get that 700 score. Spectrum, then we've got Extreme, powered by Mediacom. So again, Mediacom, not as much a national, more of a big regional. Cox, and then Frontier Communications again down at the bottom, but again, probably being dragged down their score by DSL, I would think. Then we've got AT&T on top in the South. This is where I am. This is who my provider is. Then we've got Xfinity. That was my previous provider, and I fired them because of price, because it kept going up, and their quality was actually pretty good, and speed was fine, but I think their price kept going up, and I looked at AT&T, and really, I got one of those special deals from AT&T. So I was walking through Costco, and some kid stopped me. It's like, hey, who's your internet with? And I said, Xfinity. He said, well, we can give you this, AT&T fiber plus DirecTV plus a phone line. I still got, I don't have any more, but I had a phone line for my alarm service, and, all for this price. And then, of course, I think it was after a year, one thing went up, and then after 2 years, others. So I fired DirecTV and I fired the phone, but I still have AT&T for my internet. So they provide good service there. Region average, again, not sure. Kinetic by Windstream. So Windstream is, they're heavily here in the South, and they've been putting in a lot of fiber. So again, they've got DSL that they've been overbuilding, but they could be dragged down a little bit by DSL customers that are still in there. Then you got Spectrum, Frontier again, Cox, CenturyLink, and then Suddenlink is down here at the bottom in that section of the South. Then we got West, AT&T is on top of there, Xfinity's next, CenturyLink, Cox, Spectrum, and then Frontier again down at the bottom. And so that's it. So I really do think, fiber is going to be generally at the top of the heap in most of these. I think we'll see Frontier getting up towards the top as they get more and more of their plant overbuilt with fiber. It's interesting that in the one area where we had Midco, again, this is a cable operator, but this is a smaller regional cable operator. So they're probably really blowing it out of the water with service and trying to keep everything, their plant up to date, and customer service, that kind of thing. So they're actually exceeding AT&T there. They've got a higher score than they do. There was also a story about this in Fierce Telecom, and they actually talked to somebody at JD Power, so they had a little bit additional insight here, because in order to, you have to, this is all you get if you look at the report, because they want to sell you all of the information. Obviously, JD Power, that's the business they're in, so didn't want to pay for all of that. But if you look at the story, they did talk to him. So it says here, just a little background, the report analyzes consumer sentiment and operator achievement across the 5 categories, and it mentions those that we talked about. And Ian Greenblatt, manager and director at JD Power, told Fierce the first 2 categories alone account for nearly 60% of an operator's score. So that would be performance and reliability and cost of service. So obviously keeping the lights on is job number 1. It's got to work. It's got to work all the time. Reliability is critical, followed by cost of service. And obviously cost of service, again, is really important in getting somebody in the door, but then it's got to be reliable to keep them in the door, keep them from leaving you. That will help prevent churn. How do I feel about the value I get for the dollars I pay? So again, if your service is rock solid, you're feeling pretty good about the value as long as it's not overpriced. Does it feel like I'm getting the right deal, or do I feel like I'm getting taken advantage of? Again, price point, and what are other providers charging? What are your friends and neighbors saying about their service? How much are they paying? Because people do ask. It's easier to ask than ever on Facebook or nextdoor.com. He added that consumers seem most satisfied if their service costs $70 per month or less. After that, we see a meaningful drop-off in satisfaction, Greenblatt noted. So $70 seems to be kind of the sweet spot. And what does that get you? Well, it says practically speaking, I guess this is Fierce talking here. Practically speaking, that means most consumers are shopping operators mid-tier plans. For instance, AT&T and Verizon both offer 500 meg fiber plans for less than $70, or in Verizon's case, a gig if you have an eligible 5G plan with them. Comcast offers 600 megs at that price point, though its 1.2 gig plan is also in reach if you apply autopay. Meanwhile, T-Mobile's fixed wireless home internet is $55 per month for typical download speeds of between 33 and 182. So they're not going to be as fast, but they're really making a play. T-Mobile's out there trying to, with their 5G service, and it's usually be a little bit higher than this 33. As long as they have the spectrum, they're going to be somewhere closer to the mid or upper range in here, this 182. So you can get good speeds through that 5G service. They put a little router in your house, and it basically uses the 5G to do fixed wireless in your house. And they're making a big push. No contracts, no setup fee if I recall. They don't charge you for the equipment, so $55 a month. But again, you need to be, I could get that here, I think. I've been getting texts from them. T-Mobile is actually my carrier for mobile. But again, I'm happy with AT&T, and AT&T is not that much more when I get, they kind of have a perpetual discount on there that they're providing to keep me as a long-term customer at this point. So, on the reliability front, Greenblatt noted there's a huge satisfaction gap among those who experience intermittent internet signal problems and those who don't. Of 13 providers included in the study, 7 offered performance below the industry average for intermittent internet signal problems. Verizon had the fewest problems in this area, followed closely by Comcast Xfinity, Greenblatt said. So there you've got a large fiber provider and a large cable operator that are both providing good service. Comcast, they've got lots of tools to make sure that their cable plant is performing well. They do proactive network maintenance. They've got their own P&M tools that they developed, so they can keep on top of any issues and actually use little tricks that they can turn pre-equalization on in CMTS and cover up a lot of those issues that you might see in an RF plant. And then they use P&M tools to go out and fix those problems before customers call and complain. So they've got that kind of stuff set up that large cable operators have, and then smaller cable operators can get that through us, for example. I'll mention that in a minute. So you got a cable operator and then you got a fiber operator that are both doing well there. He flagged excessively slow loading speeds as another major issue in the performance category. So obviously that is going to be an issue. So if somebody, again, let's say Frontier, DSL, maybe somebody in the DSL side, that could be bringing their scores down. So that would be most likely what they're talking about there. All things equal, customers who experience those versus those who don't, you're looking at 180 to 190 points lower out of 1,000. So it means something. So again, I do think speed-wise, they're talking mostly about DSL there, because if these people are paying what they're paying for, they're not getting a gig, they're paying kind of in that 500 meg range, or maybe they're getting a gig if they're taking auto pay or whatever, but it's really more about quality, and then speeds of half a gig are plenty for people. They're perfectly happy with that. Here's some other interesting tidbits from the report. Greenblatt shared with Fierce. In terms of overall satisfaction, fiber performs 36 points better than cable. Cable in turn performs 9 points better than DSL. I'm surprised cable's only 9 points better than DSL. Fiber obviously is the gold standard as far as broadband goes these days. Cable can actually do very well though. And again, if you've got the plant, if you've got your DOCSIS plant tuned up right, and you've got the tools to be able to keep it that way, then as you saw here with Comcast and I think it was Verizon, they're very close as far as the top as far as reliability. 18% of consumers said they would leave their fixed wireless service for faster speeds. So that tells me that probably that's maybe the only option that they have there. Maybe they're at DSL and they've got a fixed wireless plan that's higher speeds and they're going with that for now. But they would probably leave it for a faster service. Most fixed broadband customers, 58%, said they found their ISP by visiting a website, whereas 43% of fixed wireless customers found their ISP through word of mouth. That again kind of tells me that maybe these are areas where there are not that many options. So maybe they had DSL before and they asked around, they said, hey, is there any other service around here? And somebody said, hey, I got fixed wireless from this company, try it out, that kind of thing. So this is interesting information. Again, here it talks about the number of customers and the time that this was put out there. So you can see those numbers. So let's see, Conway fan, definitely feel like I've been getting ripped off for the last 13 years, paying $50 a month for 1.5 by 5 from CenturyLink, now Brightspeed. Yeah, I know they're going through a change there. The last 13 years, well, maybe you can think back to when 1.5 by 0.5 meg was not so bad, although maybe back then you weren't getting that fast, because certainly, that's one of the challenges with broadband is it's a moving target. In fact, there's something tomorrow. There's a live stream tomorrow. Actually, Vince Cerf is going to be doing something about defining broadband. Because I think what he said yesterday in this call I was on was that broadband is really, how did he put it? I wish I could remember that. It's funny. So broadband is basically whatever you say it is, because it's changing all the time. I can't remember what he said exactly. So broadband, the definition of broadband has changed over time. The FCC keeps making that higher because we just can get faster speeds now. So whereas 1.5 by a meg, that in the early days that was fantastic. Yeah, maybe 13 years ago it was starting to get a little bit slow, I guess. But you've got we had 4 by 1, I think, was broadband after that, and then that's just inched up, and now we're saying anything under 100 by 20 is considered underserved, and they're really saying really should be 100 by 100 should be kind of the minimum, and then shooting, the FCC saying really our goal should be a gig. Well, by the time we get to a gig, then the goal is going to be something much greater, I would think. So when we get to a gig symmetrical, everybody's going to be looking out at 10 gig or 100 gig symmetrical or something like that. It's just a moving target, so it's hard to keep up. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. So well, first of all, if you're a cable operator, let me say we serve cable operators and fiber operators with our software diagnostics and managed services. But specifically on the cable side, we do have a proactive network maintenance tool. It's called Pre-Equalization Analyzer, and it allows you to turn pre-equalization on in the CMTS, which covers up a lot of the issues because it's very smart technology. It actually tells the cable modem to send the inverse signal to the CMTS so that it can overcome things like microreflections. So the CMTS can see that the cable modem is transmitting a signal that's off because it's going through some kind of an impairment, like maybe some maybe a cut in the cable, or it could be some water in a tap or something like that. And that distorts the signal, and the CMTS just tells the cable modem, hey, reverse that signal. And that actually fixes the issue. It doesn't fix the issue, excuse me. It overcomes the impairment so that the customer's service gets better again. The cable modem can adjust for that, but it doesn't fix the issue. So eventually in the cable plant, these issues get worse. So the crack in the cable gets worse, or the connector gets corroded. And then over time, it just can't compensate anymore. So we have tools that will let you can turn on the pre-EQ, and then the tool will show you where your problems are on the map. It says, hey, you've got some issues here that you can address. So if you're a cable operator and you want to make your plant better, maybe more competitive with some of the other operators out there, then certainly give us a call. You can see our phone number here. You can see our email address. So check us out there. Go to our website, zquorum.com, and look for DOCSIS Proactive Network Maintenance or the Product Pre-Equalization Analyzer. You can read up all about that. And I also did a blog post on that. Check out our blog. I did a blog where I explained exactly how pre-EQ works. I mean, there's lots of, if you want to know all about it, I explained the basics of how DOCSIS Proactive Network Maintenance works and all the little pieces and parts that go in to make that happen. So that might be of interest to you if you are a cable operator. Again, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. If this was interesting, please give me a thumbs up on the video and click the subscribe button and click the little bell to be notified when I'm live. I'll see you next time.